I was able to increase my bench from 275 pounds to 295 pounds in just 4 weeks. I'm going to tell you how I did this by providing you with my 5 principles of building strength. They are simple but yet very effective. And I promise you, if you follow these 5 principles, you will see significant improvements in your strength. Now, my first principle is training in your strength zone. This involves lifting anywhere from 80 to 95% of your 1 rep max. When you're lifting that close to your 1 rep max, you have to make sure to keep your reps and sets on the lower side. So for example, let's start with the reps. You want to lift between 1 to 5 reps. The heavier the weight, the fewer the reps, and vice versa. When I was working on my bench, I focused on doing 1 to 2 reps a set. With that rep range, I was lifting 90 to 95% of my 1 rep max, and as a side note, I would highly advise not to perform a 1 rep max during your training period. Maxing out is way too hard on your central nervous system and your joints. Okay, now let's talk about the sets. Keep your working sets to only 2 to 4 sets and exercise. When you're training for strength, volume is not your friend. This is because you're lifting too close to your 1 rep max, and the more volume you do, the more detrimental to your overall strength gains, because more volume makes it harder to recover. And before we move on to principle number 2, make sure you have proper form. Bad form leads to injuries, and you won't get that mind to muscle connection. Okay, now let's move on to principle number 2, which is progressive overload. Progressive overload is a way to increase the difficulty of your workouts gradually. This forces your muscles to adapt and grow stronger, and this is what you can do to make progressive overload part of your training. Start with a weight or exercise difficulty that you can comfortably handle for a specific number of repetitions. That is your baseline. Over time, you gradually increase the challenge. This could be done in multiple ways: increasing the amount of weight you lift, doing more repetitions of the same exercise and weight, and performing the exercise for longer durations. By consistently challenging your muscles with increasing difficulty, they are forced to adapt and grow stronger. As you guys saw in the beginning, I increased the amount of weight I was lifting every week. By doing this, I was forcing my body to adapt week after week, which is exactly what you should be aiming for. But you guys need to be mindful. Make sure to increase the weight at increments you can handle safely. Don't try to jump up in weight too fast. Be patient. Follow an increment and time frame you're comfortable with. Okay, now let's move on to principle number 3, which are compound movements. When your goal is to build some serious strength, you need to focus on lifts that work multiple muscle groups at once. And those are the compound movements. Think squats, deadlifts, bench, rows, and overhead presses. During your strength training period, make sure to reduce isolation lifts or completely remove them from your training regimen. But why should you focus on compound lifts for building strength? First and foremost, you get more muscle activation. This is because compound movements engage multiple muscle groups simultaneously. This creates a greater overall muscle response compared to isolation exercises that target just one muscle at a time. And by stressing more muscle groups with each lift, you stimulate them to adapt and grow stronger over time. Compound lifts also have the added benefit of allowing you to lift more weight than any isolation lift ever would. Okay, now let's move on to principle number 4, which is specificity. When you're training to increase your strength, you need to focus on movements you're trying to get stronger in. If, for example, your goal is to increase your bench press, then you should do that movement several times a week. I say this because strength isn't just about muscle size, it's also about efficiency. This means how efficient are you at doing the movement, and that comes from regular practice. You can have your working days and your practice days. On your practice days, you can go very light, about 20 to 40% of your 1 rep max. Your goal on these days is to just move the weight with proper form. During my training, I would bench about 4 times a week. On my practice days, I would bench 135 to 165 pounds for 3 sets and 10 reps, and then move on to my actual workout. This was to get my body familiar with the movement as much as possible. Because my practice days were so light, it did not hurt my actual working days. And that brings us to principle number 5, which is rest and recovery. There is no strength increase without proper rest and recovery. Because strength training is very demanding on your bodies, you need to structure your workouts in a way that allows your body to recover. And here's how you do it. Never max during your training period. It will zap your central nervous system. Keep your overall volume low. This includes all your lifts, and this is where the low reps and sets come from. Do not have more than 3 heavy lifting days a week, and make sure to have 48 hours between your heavy lifting days. That doesn't mean you can't lift in between, the intensity will just have to be lowered. Prioritize getting quality sleep on a nightly basis. Eat nutrient-dense foods and avoid ultra-processed foods because they can cause inflammation and a whole lot of other negative effects you want to avoid. And most importantly, listen to your body. There's nothing wrong with taking an extra day if you feel like you need it. And that's it for this video, guys. If you guys enjoyed it or learned something, please make sure to like, subscribe, and comment. Peace, y'all.